So yeah, we were at Sutra 133, and I feel that I'm gonna read out parts of this. But what I was getting back at, that if we forget everything else that we've discussed so far, I think this one sutra can be a lovely way to lead our life with, to ensure that we at least do this much daily. It's okay if we don't do an asana practice. It's okay if we don't do a pranayama practice, but at least ensure. And every time we catch ourselves in any of these situations, whether that's feeling jealousy towards those who are in a happier position, or when we don't feel compassionate towards those who are distressed, or we don't give that person a ear, or when we don't feel happy for someone else's happiness, and or when we are not equanimous or indifference towards someone who is non-virtuous, is when we're creating new seeds and we're creating new imprints. So it's so important for us just to be a better human being. Forget whether yogi or a practitioner on this path, or whether to advance on this path or not. I think this is just the very basic of it, which is beautifully I think encapsulated in this sutra. And it's such a long sutra that I think it's condensed, it's comprised, and it yet gives such a potent tool for us, for those people who can just, even if you can't fix your mind on an object, or you can't focus on the breath, or you can't do any of the other means that Patanjali is describing to overcome the chitta vrittis, we can all of us are in a position to do this basic one. And another translation of this sutra I really liked, which I stumbled on Instagram, was: the mind will become still when we cultivate qualities of the heart, friendliness towards the happy, compassion in the face of suffering. This sutra is about being able to celebrate the good fortune of someone else. Oh. Good fortune of someone else, to celebrate somebody else's joy. It's about being able to find that ability to feel and become compassionate in the face of suffering. It's about not being disturbed when something appears to be not as you would have it. It's about not being caught in the drama about what's happening outside of yourself, but just always cultivating the sweetest of reactions where possible. To have a peaceful mind, you should cultivate attitudes of friendliness without jealousy towards those who are joyful. Have compassion towards those who are unhappy or less fortunate. To delight in the support of acts that are virtuous, and to be impartial, to avoid the dramas of the impure. Another translation, I'm just going to read from Edwin's sutras. He's a commentary on the sutras. So in this sutra, Patanjali outlines a practice essential for enhancing lucidity, the prerequisite for attaining steadiness in the mind. Vyasa pairs the set of attitudes specified by Patanjali in the first part of this sutra sequentially with the conditions listed in the second part. As a result of cultivating an attitude of friendship with those who find themselves in a situation of happiness, one of compassion towards those in distress, one of joy towards pious souls, and one of equanimity or indifference towards the impious, sattva is generated. And if you remember in the first class, we spoke about each of the qualities that the three guns have. Sattva gives us that lucidity. Sattva gives us that discriminatory power to see between the Purusha and the Prakriti. So consequently, the mind becomes lucid, clearly being the nature of Sattva. Clarity being the nature of Sattva, Once the mind is clear, one-pointed concentration or steadiness can be achieved. Another commentator, Vachaspati Mishra, elaborates on this: by being a well-wisher towards those who are happy as well as those who are virtuous, the contamination of envy is removed. By compassion towards those who are miserable, that is, by wishing to remove someone's misery as if they were one's own, the contamination of desire to inflict harm on another is removed. By equanimity towards the impious, the contamination of intolerance is removed. By thus removing these traits of envy, desire to inflict harm, and intolerance, which are characteristics of Rajas and Tamas, the Sattva, natural to mind, can manifest. In the ensuing state of lucidity, the inclination towards controlling the vrittis, in other words, towards cultivating a focused state of mind by the practice of yoga, spontaneously arises, because the inclination for enlightenment is natural to the pure sattvic mind. So this is again another interesting perspective on this sutra. It's saying all the other sutras are actually talking about how we can cultivate more sattva or sattva gun in us. How can we meditate proper? How do we do that? This is actually saying how do we reduce what's causing us rajas or tamas in the first place. This is what's causing anger, jealousy, hatred, is all what's a play of the rajas and tamas. So how do we diminish that play? Is through this, through creating compassion, by creating friendliness. And I feel this is not just something that's unique to the Patañjali Yoga Sutra. In fact, even in Buddhism, you have these exact same in the Pali language written by in the Buddha Sutras as well. They are known as Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upeka, similar to what we are just talking about, and it is when we cultivate these attitudes of compassion, of friendliness, is when we can actually allow for this nirodha of the chitta vrittis to happen spontaneously. Again, something that we had mentioned in the first class, that this chitta vritti nirodha is not something that you can just close your eyes and sit and be like, I want to just nullify all these mental afflictions. You can't. It's something that arises naturally through time, by abhyas, by you constantly, narantarya, constantly cultivating this attitude with satkara, with welcoming attitude towards this study, whether that's your self-study, whether that's the Patanjali's Ashtangas, whether that's these other means. When you do this constantly, automatically those lower thoughts, those toxic thoughts will leave you. Those disturbances, those obstacles which are causing suffering will leave you. You don't have to go attack the suffering. You don't have to go abolish the suffering. You have to just cultivate more of the sattva gun, more of that discriminatory power, because through that sattva gun, you will be able to discriminate and see that, okay, this is not happening to me. As Lakshmi said that, I have these moments of thought where I realize this is not my whole life. This is not everything. So it is just a thought, and it is through this cultivation that we can generate that. Another interesting perspective is by Hari Harananda. He suggests that envy generally arises when we encounter people whom we do not care about experiencing happiness. Even a pious person can invoke our jealousy, and we take cruel delight when we find an enemy in misery. One should rather try to practice projecting the happiness we feel when our friend is happy or virtuous onto an enemy who is happy. He continues, and the compassion we feel for our friends when they are unhappy should be cultivated for our enemies too. By these practices of equanimity, the mind can become lucid and fixed in the goal of yoga. Vigna Bhakshu and Shankara quote that in the Gita in this regard, a self-controlled person attains peace by engaging with sense objects, with the senses freed from attachment and aversion and under his control. With clear mind, his intelligence becomes fixed. As arithmetic is important, not so much in its own right, but as an order to arrive at the total sum of something, so as these attitudes mentioned in the sutra are important in order to prepare the mind for meditation. This sutra prescribes a kind of mindfulness or mental cultivation of the mat, so as to speak, that is in day-to-day affairs outside the context of chitta vritti nirodha type of meditation. So cultivating the higher qualities of sattva is a continuous and constant requirement of the yogic path, and spills over onto all aspects of life's affairs and social interactions. It speaks to the fact that yoga need not be perceived as a world-renouncing tradition, but is perfectly compatible with engaged and benevolent social action in the world. So this is just that skillful action, that Kriya Yoga, which actually the next path talks about more. But since we're ending the class today, just want to leave you with this, that this cultivation, we may not see the fruits or the effects of what this kind of attitude cultivation does, but in the long run it allows us to have that equanimous state of mind, which is the crux of yoga practice. Any yoga practice means cultivates mindfulness, which means equanimity, an equanimous state of mind. Neither an attraction towards things we like, neither an aversion towards things we don't like, both of which are causing us affliction, both of which are leading to chitta vrittis, both of which are causing us suffering. So it is through this cultivation of this is attitude are we able to actually go over suffering or use a tool for overcoming obstacles or disturbances on the path. So I'd like to leave you all with that. That's all that we have for today. And thank you very much for being a part of this journey. I'm very happy to share some time. If you all like any questions, anything you all want to discuss out of so far that we've discussed, either in today's class or any of the other classes, happy to take up a discussion on that too.
Where's that quote from that you just read about the enemy and the friend of the that was really nice.
Thank you, Suruchi. But actually, this is a translation by, so these all, like in all the commentaries, whichever Yoga Sutra book you have, you'll have the sutra in Sanskrit, which is what Patanjali has written, and then you'll have a commentary. Now, the commentary normally is whoever the book author is. So out here it would be Edwin, but you will also have other commentators who they've elaborated on, which are the former commentators. So you have Vachaspati Mishra, you have Hari Harananda, you have Ved Vyas Ji. So they are all like the original, you can say, the commentators, and everyone else is actually just elaborated on their commentary. So this is someone's commentary on this sutra. I'll put it up on the group. I'll take a picture of this and put it up on the group. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
No worries.
Can you also put up all the books that you had listed during this thing, like in one group?
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe with the author. Because I got this one, but I would like to read other books.
Nice. That's so nice.
I got this one and I got the other one which you had mentioned.
So you got Edwin and BKS Iyengar, I think. The Light on Yoga. Yes, lovely.
So whatever books you mentioned, if you can put it up with the author, so it's easier to find. Yeah?
Definitely, I'll do that for sure. And I'll also put up this is a nice song. It's by Satnam Kaur. It's actually basically just this, and like I mentioned, it's this sutra. It's the essence of this sutra, and it's a nice song to actually. I think it's quite meditative to just sit and hear it. But you can just hear it, and y'all can share your thoughts on it. It's the same. The Pope Saint Francis of Assisi. It's actually his prayer. The "Let me be thy instrument." But it talks about the same concept of allowing ourselves to feel each other's pain deeply, recognizing we're all interconnected, cultivating compassion, and just surrendering to that higher power, that higher knowledge, that seat of intuition. So that's all. Great. So I'm going to end the session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was very interesting.
I'm happy. I'm glad. It's equal. I enjoy it just as much when I have people who are that enthusiastic or ask me questions, because even I'm I wouldn't consider myself any teacher on this. It's just my own curiosity. So if it sparked your curiosity, I'm happy to. I think that's all that I would ask for from these sessions.
Also, like when you're studying the sutras on your own, would you recommend like reading one at a time and then like